Many are the songs that have been sung of the duel of Glorfindel with the Balrog upon a pinnacle of rock in that high place, and both fell to ruin in the abyss. But unless you look closely amongst the many tales, it is easy to miss. The great hidden city of Gondolin, ruled by King Turgon, was concealed from friend and foe alike during the First Age by the encircling mountains. At the foot of steep hills, and these hills made a great circle wherein lay a wide plain, and set therein was a great hill with a level top, and upon that summit rose a city in the new light of the morning. The gates were of iron and of great height and strength. Now the streets of Gondolin were paved with stone, and wide, curbed with marble, and fair houses and courts amid gardens of bright flowers were set about the way. Squares there were lit with fountains and the home of birds that sang amidst the branches of their aged trees. But of all these the greatest was that place where stood the king's palace, and the tower thereof was the loftiest in the city, and the fountains that played before the doors shot 20 fathoms and 7 in the air, and fell in a singing rain of crystal. Therein did the sun glitter splendidly by day, and the moon most magically shimmered by night. The birds that dwelt there were of the whiteness of snow, and their voices sweeter than a lullaby of music. On either side of the doors of the palace were 2 trees, one that bore blossom of gold, and the other of silver, nor did they ever fade, for they were shoots of old from the glorious trees of Valinor, and those trees the people of Gondolin named Glingol and Banzil. There stood the house of the Golden Flower, who bear a rayed sun upon their shields. And their chief Glorfindel wore a cloak embroidered in threads of gold and decorated with celandine as a field in spring, and his arms were decorated with cunning gold. Glorfindel was tall and straight, his hair of shining gold. On his brow sat wisdom, and in his hand was strength. But now that we have met our hero, let us begin our tale. The evil being, Morgoth, had gathered an army of spies and sent them out to discover the hidden city of Gondolin. Tidings of these spies were brought to King Turgon, and his wife Idril encouraged her son Prince Tuor to have a secret tunnel constructed that would act as an escape route should things not remain peaceful. Morgoth's animal spies soon surrounded the valley within the mountains, known as the Tumlanden, and captured Meglin, Idril's cousin. The price of his freedom was information about Turgon's plans for defence and layout of the city. Together they conceived a plan for the capture of Gondolin, and, on Meglin's advice, Morgoth had his smiths and sorcerers construct iron monsters in the likeness of dragons, which might cross difficult terrain and harbour legions of orcs to transport them safely across the open plain of Tumlanden. Meglin returned to Gondor promptly so as not to arouse suspicion, and Morgoth withdrew his spies. Turgon and the people saw this as Morgoth seeing the impregnability of Gondolin, and so the watch on the mountains was slackened. It was as the people of Gondor were celebrating the gates of summer festival that Morgoth assaulted the city. The sun had sunk beyond the hills, but even when she had gone and all was dark, a new red light suddenly began. And a glow there was, but it mounted beyond the hills in the north, and not in the east. And men marvelled. There was a thronging of the walls and battlements. Then wonder grew to doubt as that light waxed and became redder, and doubt to dread as men saw the snow upon the mountains dyed as it were with blood. And thus it was that the fire serpents of Morgoth came upon Gondolin. The battle began in earnest, and the hosts of Morgoth crossed the plain, bombarded by Turgon's archers. However, they did little to slow them down. Gothmog, leader of the Balrogs, led an assault using the iron monsters. From their bellies, hosts of orcs spilled, and battle intensified more as the Balrogs came upon the defenders there, with lords of the houses slain or cut off from the city. The dragons heaved against the wall, succeeding in breaching it, During the ensuing battle in the streets, Glorfindel chose to hold the great market from the advancing orcs. There they fought bitterly for hours till a fire drake new come from the breach, overwhelmed them, and Glorfindel cut his way out very hardly, and with few men. But this place, with its stores of goodly things of fine workmanship, was a waste of flames. The city lost, they gathered what people of Gondolin they could find. They escaped via the secret passage, filing down into the tunnel which was hot from the fires of the dragons upon the plain, and choked with bodies of those crushed by dislodged rocks. With Glorfindel holding the rear, they moved quickly down the way of running waters and onto a dreadful pass, with dragons and orcs in pursuit. This dreadful pass was named the Eagle's Cleft, where beneath the shadow of the highest peaks a narrow path wound its way. On the right hand it was walled by a precipice, and on the left a dreadful fall leapt into emptiness. Along that narrow way their march was strong, when they were ambushed by orcs, for Morgoth had set watchers all about the encircling hills, and a Balrog was with them. Already the half had passed the perilous way, when that Balrog that was with the rearward foe leapt with great might on certain lofty rocks that stood into the path on the left side upon the lip of the chasm, lashing with its whip of flame. Then Glorfindel leapt forward upon him, and his golden armour gleamed strangely in the moon, and he hewed at that demon, that it leapt again upon a great boulder, and Glorfindel after. Now there was a deadly combat upon that high rock above the folk. The ardour of Glorfindel drove that Balrog from point to point, and his mail fended him from its whip and claw. Now had he beaten a heavy swing upon its iron helm, now hewn off the creature's whip arm at the elbow. Then sprang the Balrog in the torment of his pain and fear full at Glorfindel, who stabbed like a dart of a snake, but he found only a shoulder, and was grappled, and they swayed to a fall upon the crag-top. Then Glorfindel's left hand sought a dirk, and this he thrust up that it pierced the Balrog's belly, nigh his own face, and it shrieked and fell backwards from the rock. And falling clutched Glorfindel's yellow locks, and those twain fell into the abyss. Then at the death cry of the Balrog, the orcs before and behind wavered and were slain or fled far away. And Faundor himself, a mighty bird, descended to the abyss and brought up the body of Glorfindel. But the Balrog remained, and the water of Faun ran black for many a day far below in Tumladin. The exiles buried him in a mound of stones beside the pass, and a green turf grew there, and yellow flowers bloomed upon it amid the barrenness of stone in those unkindly places, until the world was changed. Glorfindel's spirit passed to the walls of Mandos, where he waited with the spirits of the others who had died during their war against Morgoth. But, because of Glorfindel's noble actions in life, he was re-embodied after only a short time, with him earning great powers against evil. He was eventually sent across the sea to Middle-earth to aid Gil-galad and Elrond in the struggle against Sauron. We don't see Glorfindel again until his next appearance during the War of the Ring. He was one of the elves dispatched to search for the Ring-bearer, and found and helped bear Frodo to Rivendell. Clearer and nearer now the bells jingled, and clippity-clip came the quick trotting feet. Suddenly into view below came a white horse, a gleaming in the shadows, running swiftly. In the dusk its headstall flickered and flashed, as if it were studded with gems like living stars. The rider's cloak streamed behind him, and his hood was thrown back, his golden hair flowed shimmering in the wind of his speed. To Frodo it appeared that a white light was shining through the form and raiment of the rider, as if through a thin veil. Glorfindel attended the council of Elrond and prophesied that the Witch King Rafe would not fall by the hand of man. After the ring was destroyed, like Gandalf, his task in Middle-earth was done, and the Age of Elves was over. It is believed he passed west, joining the bearers of the 3 rings and the One Ring.